What is consciousness? The live stream of consciousness is on a quest to unravel the mysteries of existence. Every episode, we ask the fundamental question that has captivated human minds for centuries. Is consciousness merely a product of our brains, or does it connect us to something greater? Explore the very fabric of our thoughts. Don't miss a moment. Expand your awareness and tap into the boundless potential that resides within you. Welcome to the live stream of consciousness.
Yes, tap into the boundless potential that resides within you. I'm listening to the intro every time I focus on a different line. It's awesome. Jesse did such an awesome job with that voiceover. It's awesome how his soul lives on in this show. Yes, welcome to the live stream of consciousness. I am Michael Zinn. It is Thursday night once again. It's August 24th. Holy moly, can you believe it's like 24 days already into August? That means August is almost over. That is just crazy to think about. It's amazing how summer is like the best season here on Long Island for me anyway, personally. Some people like winter, and it just goes like that. It's amazing. Anyway, I was also noticing, I just want to thank everybody who comes here regularly. I know I probably thank you regularly, but I was just noticing how the live stream of consciousness, for me, besides being my happy place and being this place where an intention was set to have these great conversations and do all of these things, and occasionally run into my mother who's out there. What's up, Mom? And Grace Grella, whose show we just did earlier. It's actually kind of been documenting a little bit of my journey. I started doing this show with Jesse Blaze Snyder. I started doing a wellness class. He created a class called the 13 Universal Laws, according to Jesse Blaze, and we broadcast that live from a wellness center locally here called Tranquility Within, and it was during COVID, so he couldn't really have, I think he was able to have like 2 or 3 people come in, and then we broadcast it live, and it was just something I was interested in doing, and I was doing that for people kind of behind the scenes. And then when he was done, he was like, I love this, let's do more of this, let's have more of this conversation, and asked me to be his co-host, and here I am, all of a sudden, the host of a show. Lily was there. She said it was a great class. It was really a great class. It was a great experience. It was a weird time, COVID, when all of that was happening, and Jesse was here and staying with me, and it was a very cool experience to go through. Watching him create that class, he really dove into different beliefs, hermetic beliefs, and the Kabbalah, and all of these different things. So it was really cool to watch and be a part of, and then watch it evolve into this. So anyway, I've gone into my ritualistic babbling at the beginning of the show. I'm excited for tonight's show. Tonight's guest is somebody who I don't really know too well. I met through my girlfriend Janice, who has her own broadcast, Unique Piece, which is an amazing show in its own right, and she always has amazing guests and conversations on, and I always steal her guests because they have an amazing energy. The live stream of consciousness is about energy, and it's about how we're all connected. And for me, that's part of what I was talking about and thinking about, is that watching the show from episode 1 till now, it went and watching myself evolve, talking to different people, having these conversations. It's just so great. It's great that it's on film, and I can watch it and experience it again, and other people can experience it. I'm creating a moment intentionally that now, through technology, exists, that other people can experience in their own moment. And that's what's cool too, because I'm always like, oh, hey, here we are in this moment, and then I think about the replay, and I'm like, well, I'm not actually there in that moment, but they're in that moment. So I think it's amazing. And I love this, and I hope it becomes something even bigger. I've been taking an amazing class with Lynn Laborde, who is one of my guests, regarding accessing the Akashic records and being a little more sensitive to that. And it's been a really emotional experience, which to me is very significant. That means something's touching something inside of me. So it's been cool. I just want to acknowledge Tim. Tim, we missed the last few weeks. Taryn and I were on our way back to Brazil, fell down an escalator. Oh, I'm sorry to hear that. You hurt your knee. You are Mr. Warrior. You have been through so much. So much. The last thing you need to do is fall down an escalator while holding your son and hurting your knee. I'm sorry to hear that, my friend. But I'm glad you're okay. I'm glad you're back. You don't need to apologize. You don't need to excuse yourself for not being here. You're here now. You could always watch the replays. I'm sure you do. And I'm sure everything's okay. Anyway, back on track. So this woman who is my guest tonight, her name is Camille. I'm not sure if I'm saying her last name right, Nisich or Nisich, but we'll find out in just a minute as I welcome her to the show. Welcome to the live stream of consciousness, Camille.
Hello, Michael. It's such a pleasure to be here. I'm so excited to be
awesome.
here. Oh my gosh,
Awesome.
so excited. All the things. The intro is fire. You're right. The energy,
Thank
all
you.
the things. We're going to talk about all the things. It is Nisich. I always say it's like
Okay.
miss with an N and itch like sandwich.
Nisich. Okay. That's how I was saying it all week. And then,
you got it.
I had a guest on, Matt Einsidler, who I was like, I introduced as Einsidler, and I was like, oh, you know what? Maybe that's not right. I asked him, and he was like, yep, you're right. That's not correct. So I figured I would ask you, but Nisich is right, and all good. Well, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much.
So I build you as an advisor, and a coach, and a couple of other things, and I want to talk about what you do. But you told me that you watched a couple of episodes, so I think you know what's coming. And that is the classic question that Jesse asks at the beginning of the show. What is consciousness? What is consciousness, Camille?
I think I love that question, and I love the answers that other people give, and I love how you talk about it. But for me, I feel like it's an existence that is in the universe on many different planes.
Mm-hmm.
And as an individual, you have a layering of awareness to it, but there's that interconnectedness that we all have. So that's what it is for me. And I feel like I'm always on this constant exploration of just little pieces and corners and ways to reveal things and what have you. So yeah.
Sure. No, that's a great answer. And I think even that little extended part, once you become aware of that, right, that the idea, and that's a concept, the idea that there is this existence that's bigger than you and you are a part of it, and once you become aware of it, like you said, you could start to observe different ways that we interact with each other, that you interact with yourself. Something that I was thinking before the show, because I definitely want to talk to you about my relationship with finances and stuff like that, because that's kind of your specialty, is something that I think about it all the time, is the words that I say and the thoughts that I have, especially regarding myself. When I'm talking about myself and I talk about my relationship with money, for example, I have to be careful when I say things like this challenge or that, whatever it might be, and be more proactive and be like, I'm doing this, and I'm, instead of saying I'm trying, I'm changing the way that I'm thinking. I'm not trying to change the way I'm thinking. I'm changing the way I'm thinking. So anyway, I'm getting off on a tangent about the words that I use, but that's what I was thinking earlier.
Words have power. You're right,
absolutely.
though. They do.
1,000,000%. And so it was something, actually, I think I saw that Bruce Lee said about the words that you use about yourself are the most powerful. So that was what triggered all of those thoughts. But there is a second part to the business before we get into the juice of the show, and that is just asking you to maybe share an experience or a story about when you kind of realize that there might be more to the world than a lot of the 3D stuff that we've been taught, about.
Yeah. Oh gosh, I have so many. How much time do we have? But I will share one that's maybe a little bit tangible, particularly to what you said about it being late August. So I live in the Albany, New York area, and just today, that interconnectedness, I was thinking, I saw that first little kiss of orange on a tree, and I live for summer and I do not like winter. And so I felt this like almost sadness because it was a little cool and rainy today. I saw the kiss of orange on a tree and I thought, oh, that's what's coming.
Felt like
And I
fall.
thought,
Yeah.
and I
I
thought,
felt that today.
oh, there's
I
a
felt that.
lesson in this because I just love summer. If I could, I would just chase summer around the globe, let's be honest. And so I felt that moment of sadness
Ooh,
and
I
I
love
thought,
that.
but there's lessons in the fall and there's lessons in the winter, Camille. So just be open to it and whatever. So, but yeah, I had an experience when I've been in this area for 11 years. It was just a couple of weeks ago, 11 years.
Okay.
And I remember the first year I had moved here from Austin, Texas. It's already August. I'm thinking about how, the winter's coming and all these things. And I'm making my son a cake. And at the time he was a toddler, he was really into Lightning McQueen. And I'm listening to the radio, which I don't, I'm relatively new to the area. So it's not like I had a station yet or anything. Just happened to have it on as I'm in the kitchen making this cake. And I hear this psychic medium, I honestly don't even know her name, on the radio. And in that moment where I was having a hard time getting used to being here, having left the life I had lived in a town for 12 years, I had 2 young toddlers. And a few weeks before I moved here, I had a knee surgery. So I feel you, Tim, on the whole knee thing. And so I just felt like there was all these things hitting me and I needed to take this moment of calm. And so I hear this medium on the radio. And again, she's not talking to me. She's talking to whoever was the caller.
Right.
And I had this moment of like something opening up. And I said, you know what? You are not alone. You are protected. There are forces at play in your favor. And even in that moment, I was reminded that I was making a cake for my son who was born 25 years to the day from when one of my brothers died. So I'm like, the universe has been looking out for you your whole life, Camille, and the universe will continue to look out for you. So even though you're feeling all these things coming at you right now, you are okay. And that hearing the medium on the radio and the idea of making this cake and what it was the celebration of was just one of those reminders. So millions of stories like that in my life, but that's just one of them. Yeah.
So that's that's a great story. Did you feel something like physical, like in other words, the fact that this medium was connecting with spirit, that was you were like, oh wait, spirit is something, and like you kind of were like, was that a feeling that you had, or like explain what was so exciting?
I think I've always felt like spirit was something, and again, many different instances of that in my life, but it was just a reminder. It was more of a reminder of that awareness that I had.
Okay, no, I love that. That's a great story. I got to ask you a question. Are you a writer as well?
That's an interesting question. I feel like I am a decent writer, but I don't write a lot.
Okay. Well, I noticed the way you were speaking, right? So you were
Mhm.
talking about the kiss of orange, right?
Yeah.
And like, ooh, that just like got me because like I know exactly. I'm a photographer. I love the golden hour. You know what I mean? I love
Yep.
that. I love anyone who can recognize that the light is a certain color at a certain time. You know what I mean? And especially that one is very significant. So just the way you expressed that, you expressed something else, and I'm like, first I was like, oh, she's a writer, and then you said something else. I'm like, oh, a poet. I'm like, oh,
It's yeah. I have a communications degree. My undergrad's in communications, and I have a love affair with words. Like I used to always think that I was a slow reader. Not that I was not comprehending as a reader, but that it took me a long time to read.
right.
And at some point I realized it's not that it takes me a long time to read. It's that I'm so curious about the word choices that an author
Appreciating the
makes
words,
that I'm just kind of in the moment with them like, oh, why'd you pick that word? And oh,
Right,
that's an
right.
interesting way to say
Oh,
that.
that's interesting.
So yeah.
I think that's what I was just experiencing when you
Yeah.
were talking. That's really interesting.
Mhm.
Cool. I think that's great, and I love that about communication. I think that's a lost art for sure. And I think that maybe that's it when somebody pays enough attention to their communication. I notice it because I can appreciate it. So awesome. That's wonderful. All right, so excellent. We're on the same page. I think we're past all of the work that we have to do as far as getting onto that same page.
Now we get to have fun.
Now we get to have fun. But I want to know. I want to learn a little bit about you. I did, and this is probably not fun for you, or maybe you'll be able to pull the fun out of it. I was looking at your website a little bit. Let me pop that up. Actually, I have a banner of your website where people can see more about you, which is just your name, Camille Nisich. And you're a consultant. You're an advisor financially. So finances are your specialty. But I guess there's a specific mix of finances and technology, right?
Yeah, like so business finance. Yep.
Business finance. Okay, so you worked for Dell for 18 years, and Dell is a company that I think anybody who knows what computers are knows who Dell is. Pretty big in the technology field. So I guess start there. Tell us like what you did there and how that works and what the financial relationship is with technology and what you do.
Yeah. So I interned there when I was in grad school. So I got an MBA a while ago. 2000, which seems
When you
like
were in school,
it was
doesn't
that
matter
5
when it
minutes
was.
ago, right?
Right.
And so I interned there, and so I was always curious after my undergrad experience and working after undergrad about the business side of business, right? So sometimes you're a cog in the wheel. Like I was an account manager, actually. Back to the whole communications thing, my professional career, official career, started when I was a news producer at a CBS affiliate. So I had to write news copy, which is a whole different thing, right? And I just thought, I did all this stuff around communications for a handful of years, but really wanted to get into the core inner workings of business. So went, got a business degree, interned at Dell, and went back there full time after I graduated. And I did a variety of things there. I was one of those people that, well, one, I'm just generally curious. And two, I don't like to stay in boxes, right? So I went there as a finance, consultant actually was my title, even though I was an employee of the company. And so I worked across a variety of different things. I did supply chain finance. I did very esoteric areas of finance, like corporate treasury, which is not something that people typically dance in and out of. It tends to be your career path if you go into that. I worked in capital expenditures, which is like those long-lived assets on a balance sheet of a company, right? It's like, how do we get real equipment we're going to use for many years in our business, right? But then I also, after that experience with 7 years in finance, I worked in the global communications organization. So I did everything from internal communications for finance and IT organizations to being a chief of staff for like the head of global communications, which is everything from managing a budget to doing presentations to special projects, all the things. And then I went into B2B digital marketing. So I did a variety of things there, but all of the things I worked on, global programs, installing new tools, sales enablement, implementations after we acquired EMC, which is another large multi-billion-dollar corporation. But all of the things, when I look back at that experience, was how do we take the resources we have and turn them into positive cash flow?
That's so funny that you said, like, you ended with that, because all the while I'm listening, I'm like, okay, trying to listen to you and figure out, okay, what am I going to ask about? And I was going to say, it sounds like there's a lot of analytics involved, right?
Yeah.
And that's exactly what you just said. It's just kind of figuring that out. So that's awesome. And that just kind of came natural to you. Like that's just where you felt comfortable, or, I mean.
Yeah, it was always just this idea of how do I solve a problem? And it's interesting because, Dell is obviously well known, but I feel like companies like Dell, while they're well known now, the origin of Dell versus a contrast of what you see in the headlines today. I mean, most of what you see today is like, oh, this company had this great AI idea and they got $100 million of venture capital and whatever. But at Dell, there was no VC coming to save us. We weren't going to just get a check. Like we had to fund our own operations, right? So it was, if you have an initiative that you want to bring to the company, you're going to figure out how you're going to convince the people with budget to fund it, how you're going to turn it into some positive results. Otherwise, you won't continue to get funded. And then ultimately, you want to leave something behind that truly does get woven into the fabric of the company. And I had the opportunity to do that on several different occasions, which I'm very proud of. But yeah, that's kind of how it all played out.
As if I wasn't intimidated enough. No, that's very impressive. And I think, see, what's interesting is, and I guess where I want the conversation to go and where it's probably going to go because of the show is, I was attracted to talking to you about your spiritual nature, right? And some of the things that you practice as far as meditation, and some of the things that you were talking to with Janice about, because those are some of the things that I believe are important to one's, well-being and sanity, I would say, in this day and age, right? Because it's really hard to keep saying. And you know what, I say this day and age because it is a rough and strange time, but I think in general, even before it was this time, I always felt that there was a certain challenge placed on everybody because of the way society, puts certain ideas into your head about what you can and can't do, right? I'm trying to talk on a real basic level, right?
No, I'm with you.
Yeah. So things, I think things that are becoming popular, like meditation, are showing people how simple it is to get past some of those challenges, like, being angry at other people, you know what I mean? Being angry at the world, understanding that, understanding the meaning of, you get what you give, meaning energetically, if you go out into the world grumpy, the world is going to be grumpy back, kind of, you know what I mean, to put it real
Oh
simple.
yeah.
So these things are I think real simple for people who have kind of taken on some spiritual, beliefs and practices like meditation. But for me, so this is where I was going to talk about it. My whole life previous till now, I struggled with my relationship with money. And what I've done is I've taken my belief systems and I've been able to understand that I'm in control of those belief systems and transform them, um, into the old belief system of money is the root of all evil, which really prevented me from having that relationship with money, to understanding money as a more energetic force that you can use. And it seemed like I got excited when I was looking at your website, because it seemed like I was like, well, I know she's got this spiritual edge. And then it was very obvious that through who you worked with and the things that you've been through, that you've got this other kind of this other relationship that, I'm looking for, with money, what I mean, to understand it and embrace it as that energetic, part of the equation, right?
Oh yeah. Money is definitely energy for sure. Yeah.
Yeah. And what's for somebody like me who believes that everything is energy, understanding that the relationship that I had was taking money and putting it out of the everything category. It wasn't part of the everything, you know what I mean?
Yep.
And understanding that, I need to bring it into everything and it needs to be part of that flow. I think that's when I started finding it easier for money to flow to me, and freelance work to come my way, and opportunities to come my way that, were attached to money. So that's great. So now you have your own business, right? So after all of that experience, why don't you tell us how you got there from everything you just told us to where you were and what you did at Dell and all of that stuff?
Yeah. So it actually started at Dell. So Janice and I talked about this, but I love nonfiction reading. Every blue moon, I'll read some fiction. And it's not that I don't, again, love the words, right? But it's just for me, when I'm thinking about improving myself, typically I'm defaulting to nonfiction reading. And so I had read The 4-Hour Work Week about 7 years into my Dell career. And I don't know if anybody's familiar with that book. It's by Tim Ferriss. And the general idea is that you can find a way to run a business where you can be location independent and work 4 hours, ideally, a week. And I thought,
4 hours a week.
Yeah.
To run a business.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And you achieved this?
Well, I haven't achieved it yet, but I was intrigued by the concept.
Okay.
And so instantly I was like, okay. And at the time I was just early pregnant with my first child. And I thought, oh, this is going to be something that's going to be in the back of my mind for a long time. I've got to figure out. And in the book, he talks about this idea that you create into a business that ultimately you hope will be a 4-hour work week business is called the muse. And I said, I got to figure out what my muse is. Right. So I had constantly ideating on what my muse was going to be. And over time it kept changing. But one of the things I realized was if I didn't start soon, you can't kind of see the top of the mountain from the ground, right? You got to kind of start climbing. Right. Before you get a perspective on the summit. Right. And then eventually you get there. So I said, well, I've got to start something. And at the time at Dell, they were very strict about conflict of interest, right? So you couldn't do anything that overlapped too much with your job. Otherwise, you had to get all these approvals. And I said, I don't even want to go that route. I'm just going to do something that is so far away from what I do here that there will be no question. And so while I had taught myself to meditate and I very much prioritized my sleep and had good behaviors and good sleep hygiene and all those things, I could see people around me that were not doing that, right? Like high pressure professional job, working in technology, all the things. Yeah. So I got, and this is something that I feel like women do, not that I didn't already have the skills, but I said, oh, I got to get a certification. I need a credential. So I studied sleep and stress management coaching. And so that's kind of how I started. So I started my business before I ever left Dell and was like, okay, well, I can help people with these things that I already naturally knew. And now I have some credentials to go with it. And so I can help them with that. But then after I fast forward 4 years, I left there full time and I said, oh, well, now I can bring all of my skills. So now I focus on the business side of things, but inevitably the spiritual / how do you take care of yourself / how do you make better decisions / how do you think more clearly is always going to come up. I mean, just this week, I was in an executive coaching session and we were talking about breathing because my client is high pressure executive, about to get married, still trying to perform at work, but also plan this wedding. And she has vertigo. She's not sleeping well and whatever. And I said, okay, this whole session is not going to be anything about business and leadership. It's going to be about how you're going to get to that wedding in the best state possible. Right. So, yeah.
I love that so much. It's, and it's just, it's so crazy to think like, because I know to you and me, probably like breathing, right? That's like kindergarten, right? That's like the first thing you learn, right? And you're connected.
You forget what you learn though, right?
Yeah, no, you do. Yeah, I'm not trying to say that to put anyone down, but it's like, and that's what's so amazing. Like you look at the world around you and you're like, look at how many people are struggling because they forget the most basic things like breathing, you know what I mean? Like, and it's not like they forget to breathe. They're breathing, you know what I mean? It's not like they're not breathing, but they're not paying attention to their breathing or even just taking, they say 5 minutes. I think you could do it in 3. You know what I mean? I think you could do it in 3 or 4 breaths. You can connect to your breath and you can recenter yourself. You know what I mean? And I guess that's because, we practice, right? So we're good at it. We're good at it. I have a friend, Steve Interante, who was initially my first meditation coach, who he's the saxophone player for that 70s band, which is a local band here that is like really, really popular. They do all 70s band and everybody's dancing. Like they do really amazing, energetic shows. And he said sometimes when he needs to, he can center himself on stage, like just do his breathing right on stage, right in the middle of everything, and center himself, still be aware that it's all going on, but just like center himself. And that's awesome. That's really understanding breathing. And Q for You podcast is out there. Breathing exercises, 2 minutes a night is how I put my daughter to bed. Awesome.
Love it so much.
I love that. I have a sleep ritual, which is I just put on these binaural beats on YouTube, which are just like, these kind of like tones and, just almost like spa music, I guess you can call it. And I just fall asleep to that. And it's very energetic. And I got to say, there's no doubt that it affected my life because I can remember, not being me I am now, before I did that stuff. Paid attention to some of that stuff. So there's certainly, I obviously there's power in like what you're saying, like the rituals you do on a daily basis and how they affect your ability to run a business or anything like that. So that's amazing as a coach that you go there. Do you find you don't find a lot of coaches do that, right? It's pretty unique.
I don't know. I would say that most of the coaches I have had don't do that. But I will also say that you'd be surprised. I mean, again, in some ways you have to sell people what they want, but give them what they need.
Mhm.
And so every time I've ever brought up like, oh, well, how are you sleeping? Or, what are you doing to manage stress? Or what tools are in your toolkit or whatever? If we go there, I've never gotten resistance,
Right.
but it's not, it's not what I lead with in terms of value prop necessarily.
I gotcha. I gotcha.
Yeah.
Right, because it doesn't really say that stuff on your website. It's
No. And I mean,
more like,
and let's be honest, we do some hardcore stuff. Like, I mean,
right,
looking at financial data, looking at KPIs,
right.
improving processes, like all those things we do too. But
Right.
yeah, but it does come up from time to time.
Right. Wow. That's awesome. That's awesome. And so I'm just looking at your website here. I'm trying to think of what you might be doing, and now that we can talk about. So I guess, all right, well, let's keep it on, the spiritual stuff. We like to talk about that. Do you do any like one-on-one training with people, meditation wise? Teach the people how to meditate?
I don't. I did it for a short time.
Mhm.
And I found that people, at least from in my experience, and I know there's many of amazing practitioners out there, but I felt like people would come to me when there was this really acute need,
Mhm.
and then they wouldn't stay consistent when they felt like they were better. I'm thinking, okay, I feel like this is the kind of thing that you need to kind of keep practicing. But
You know what? That's
so
fair. That's a fair assessment, and
yeah.
I gotta say, I feel I'm guilty of that too. I certainly have my own practice, but it's very light, and
Hmm.
and I certainly feel the I don't know. Again, see, this is it. I get in these battles with myself about how am I going to say this without condemning myself or like saying it the wrong way. But I mean, I guess the hamster wheel,
Hmm.
it's got its
Yeah.
purpose in my life. It's like I feel like there's a reason I get on it, and it's
Hmm.
intentional, and I feel like, oh, I know how to get off, and sometimes you forget and you end up on it for longer than you really want to be, and then you really gotta get off. I mean, again, I feel like I'm fortunate. I feel like I don't get stuck for too long.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I do get stuck on it, and I'm just like, oh man, I've been, why am I even letting this get to me? I got to get off the hamster wheel.
Yeah. But I just found that, like, for me to make my greatest impact, that wasn't necessarily the way I was going to do it. But again, does it come up all the time? I mean, all the time. Yeah.
Totally. Wow. So, what have you got going on these days? Anything interesting that you want to promote, or I mean, even your own
Yeah.
service? I mean, like, how would you promote yourself to my listeners, as far as like if anyone's looking for what, like, clarity in business, better ROI?
Yeah, typically it's going to be if you're trying to create and maintain momentum and profitability, those are the things I really love to work on. And so typically it's going to be with a certain size organization. But
Mhm.
if you are an entrepreneur, typically I would do something shorter duration. Like I tend to like to do longer duration engagements just because it gives me time to really create
Sure.
the impact that is measurable. But
Right.
I do different kinds of workshops for entrepreneurs as well, because again, I feel like I want them to be successful. I have a couple of partners that I coach entrepreneurs through, but that's like not my sales channel. I just deliver it. So,
Mhm.
but yeah,
Mhm.
workshops would probably be the main thing.
And so here's some interesting stuff I also like to talk about, technology. um
Hmm.
and I mean, so you worked for at Dell for 18 years, but I would think even in the last couple of years things have changed so significantly,
Oh yeah.
technology wise. Where do you stand on, I mean, do you employ AI in your
Hmm.
services?
I do use it. I don't. Two things that I think about AI and any other technology tool. One, I always say chase the use case, not the tool.
Mhm.
Meaning, if you can identify a use case that would help you to be more efficient and or more profitable, then yes, that makes sense. Chasing AI for AI's sake because it's a buzzword, no.
Right, of course.
And so one of the things that I talk to my clients about is like, yes, you're going to need some level of innovation in your business, but the question is, how are you going to fund that innovation? Do you see and can you map out, or do you need help mapping out a way to profitably not only acquire usage of the innovation, but also turn it into revenue for your business?
Okay, so interestingly enough, as you're saying that, those are the kinds of things where I'm saying, like, do people use AI to figure that stuff out?
I guess maybe you could,
You know
but
I mean?
yeah,
I
it
mean,
just depends.
because AI, I mean, really AI, and I had this conversation recently with my brother. We have a company that is a digital signage company, and part of the challenges are integrating, with like POS systems and things like that. So you can, have drive-through orders appear on the screen, like what people are ordering and all of that stuff. And we've been talking about AI, and he's like, it's really just analytics. It's not necessarily AI, but I'm like, well, isn't that what AI is? Right?
It's any kind of repeatable pattern that you can replicate without needing the human to do it, in my mind. So, for example, if there is like one of the most common uses of AI that we use that we probably don't even think of is if you're typing a text or something on your phone, or you're typing into Google and that autocomplete that comes up, that's AI. So if there's some instance in your business with respect to signage where there are certain patterns that you can see in either character lengths or word choice or whatever that is, then there might be an implementation of AI. I mean, AI is not just ChatGPT. There's so many different.
Right. But even in what you're saying, and I'm just thinking out loud right now, because I feel like the way the universe works with me is there'll be like a word of the week or a word of the month. You know what I mean? Where it's like just telling me something over and over. And analytics, the whole idea of analytics, I said it a couple of times during the show, based on some of the things you were saying earlier, and even now I'm talking about it, and what you're saying. Even I'm just thinking of, finding patterns in language, right? The text AI that autocompletes your text. I mean, that's an analytic process, right? It's got to analyze all the words, and it's just, so I'm just thinking out loud because something's I got to figure out why that's coming up for me, analytics and
but even in your use case, I would say, is there a way that, and again, I don't know what your staffing looks like, but like, for example, would it be less of your time or less of a staff's time to use AI to either lay out the signs or use the words, like I said, or map out the characters or whatever it is? You're looking for some form of efficiency that a human could do, but it'd be faster to get at least some input from the machine and have the human either QC it or, take it the rest of the way to the finish line or whatever that looks like, right? Because I don't think we're at a place in any of the use cases yet where it's full on the machine's just doing it, right?
No,
There's always going to need to be human intervention in my mind, or at least for right now. So
no, I agree, and I think it's a tool, and it's a powerful tool, but I think it is a tool, and it's almost limited by humans' creativity to use it. You know what I mean? Which isn't necessarily very limited. It's probably not very limited, but there is a limitation to it. And I just got to do a shout out to Raphael, who is in Vienna right now. Act Like 26. He says, great guest, always good to see mindful individuals also having insight to finance. Raphael's a very, very smart guy. I love speaking to him. It's like, having these conversations. So it's awesome to see him here, and two, see him appreciating my wonderful guest, Camille. That's awesome. I'm super, super happy about that. So thank you both for that amazing energy exchange. Awesome. So I think, first of all, we've probably got to talk off screen because I could probably use some advice,
Let's do it. Yeah, let's see
I
what that
think,
looks like.
yeah, you know what I mean? I think spiritually I'm certainly a different person than I have been most of my life,
It's a
and that's
journey.
always changing. Yeah, always changing.
Mhm.
And I feel like I have some really amazing people coming into my life through this, you know what I mean? Through just
Mhm.
different things that I do. It's like, I think part of the spiritual belief is once you kind of let go into your own authenticity, shit happens, right? Shit starts happening. You let go and you do what you're supposed to be doing, then stuff happens. And I feel like this may be a part of that for me. At least it's part of it now. And that's what I started saying at the beginning of the show. It's like I've been thinking about how grateful I am to have had this journey, and
Mhm.
be able to meet people like you and have these great conversations, um, stuff like that. So
Yeah, I think it's just signaling that you're open to it, like
absolutely,
show the
absolutely.
universe you're open to it. Say yes
Yeah.
more, you know.
Yeah, you know what? And I think the other thing is that I'm also kind of proud of is this platform is amazing, and there's so many people who are using it for like these crazy this negative energy, you know what I mean? Like
Mm, mm,
talking
yeah.
about things, and the funniest thing, I think I noticed this today. I I'm engaged, you know what I mean? I watch some of the things that are going on, and I think probably less so because it's really, really changing rapidly. So
Mm,
what I'm talking about specifically is like people like Russell Brand, or Joe Rogan, who to me at one point were very engaging and had something to say, and it didn't matter left or right. Matt Walsh and David Shapiro and these people who are kind of really prominent in social media and YouTube. Um, I was like surprised, like, oh wow, I'm interested in what this guy has to say, and it wasn't my usual, belief systems, and it was making me kind of challenge my own belief systems. And suddenly, like in the last year, like now I see Dave Shapiro, or not Dave Shapiro, I'm sorry, um, Ben Shapiro and Matt Walsh and these people, Russell Brand, doing reaction videos like to other people's videos. And I'm just like, wait a second, this is not engaging. This isn't like making me think. This is making me
mhm.
think like what's going on. You know what I mean? So again, I feel really kind of blessed because I intentionally try to keep this show about positive things, about
Yeah.
how we are all connected, like the basic answer to what consciousness is, you know what I mean? Like,
Mhm.
we're all just perceptions, and making these connections has been so freaking amazing, so much fun. So thank you for sharing your
No,
time.
it's a
And
pleasure. No, I agree with you. I find that I have to one limit the number of people I'm just listening to in general, right? And so I feel like you have a season, and it's natural to have a season where it's, oh,
Mhm,
for a season I was listening to person X, and then
mhm,
I feel
mhm.
like I got what I needed from them, and now I don't listen to
Right.
them. But I also feel like as a creator, which you are one too, you have to balance that. How much am I going to consume versus how much am I going to create? And
Mm,
so you have to kind of give yourself a boundary. And then
yeah,
thirdly, it's just, let's be honest, all that negativity is so low vibration that I'm thinking, I just
yeah,
don't have time for that.
yeah,
I
yeah,
cannot
yeah,
be
yeah.
brought down to that level.
Totally,
So,
totally. It's funny. I produce a show for Grace Grella, who is a psychic medium, and she does like a call-in show, right? So she did
Mhm.
this on public access television for like 20 years,
Wow.
29 years, I think, very long time. And recently the studio that she was doing was like changing formats or whatever, and she decided to stop doing it. But we met right around that time, and I said, well, why don't you do like a live stream? And so I facilitate this for her. She does her live stream, and
Mm,
people call in and ask their questions. And she is just such a delightful person. Anytime she like introduces you to somebody or talks about somebody, she's like, this person is a brilliant blah blah blah, whatever it is that they do. They're a
mhm.
brilliant photographer, they're a brilliant this, that, brilliant writer, that. And it's because she sees the light in everybody. You know what I mean? And so what a great perspective to have. What a great place to be in. You know what I mean? And I think there's a lot of intention behind that when you start to realize those things. It's not that everybody happens to be amazing. It's like the people that aren't so amazing, you don't make them a part of your life. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? So the people that are a part of your life, everybody who's a part of your life at that point is amazing.
Mhm. Yeah.
So that's pretty cool. And I think that's where I'm heading. I don't know if that's where you're at, but I know I'm definitely heading in that direction. And it seems like you're either at that place or you know that direction.
Oh yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
And actually talking about Grace, she's out there listening. She says
Oh,
Camille is
hello,
brilliant
Grace.
too. Look at that. See, she sees your light. She's amazing. I love working with
Oh,
Grace.
what a great
And you are.
name.
You're
Too.
I love talking to you. I love your energy. You seem to really enjoy life, which is, I mean, even that, come on, how rare is that you come
Well, and
across?
it's a choice. It's funny that you said that. Earlier when you were saying something and I giggled, the reason
Yeah.
I giggled was because you said something about joy, and joy is like one of my 5 core values, like straight up. And one day,
Love it.
my son, who's 14, was complaining about something, and I said, "Well, you can still choose to have a good day. Like joy is a choice." And he said, "What Facebook quote graphic did you read that off of?" And I just started laughing at him because I said, joy is a choice. I mean,
Where do you think those graphics come from?
well, and I told him, I said, and
That's
I
great.
literally just the other day, I don't know, I might have it here. I posted on my socials. Do I have it? I always say that no one gets out unscathed. What will you do with your scars? Like
Oh,
none of us gets
love
out unscathed.
that's
And
right.
because of that, you get to make the choice. And myself, I'm sure you too, Michael, I'm sure all of the people listening, you have some scars and you choose what to do with them. And I had to consciously choose joy at a very early age to survive.
I
And
love it.
so, do I have my bad moments? Absolutely. But largely, I'm working up every day and choosing joy. Like, what is that
That
path of
is
joy?
so key and so perfect. I'm so happy you brought that up. It's so true, right? I mean, and again, that's one of those, you talk about, okay, so what did I say? Breathing was kindergarten, right? The idea that, you can choose is also like, that's first grade, right? Or second grade. That's one of the pretty basic things that people just forget, that it's up to you. I mean, if you say life sucks, which I'm only saying as an example,
Right.
you know what I mean? If you say that, then that's what you get. You know what I mean? And that
Mhm.
you've just expressed it, right, in words. So that's what the universe believes that you think. And
Mhm.
that's what the universe gives you. And I mean, that's, to me, that's, again, that's first or second grade. Grace Grella says,
Yes,
and
Grace.
still I
Love
rise.
Maya.
Yes. Awesome. Awesomeness. So wonderful. Well, I don't want to. I don't want to end early. I don't feel like
What
I.
else? Where else should we
Yeah,
go?
let's
What else should we
talk
talk about?
about stuff. You tell. What do you like to talk about? Give us some. Give us Take us
What do I
through
like to
something.
talk about? Ugh.
Yeah.
Books. I don't know. Different things. It's funny because I was reading a post. Does anybody know Officer Tommy Norman? I know that seems like a random
I don't
question.
know that, but
He's this
Tim's. I don't mean to take you off your
Oh no, you're
topic,
fine.
but Tim's got a good quote, and I think that's also good for you, because I do know that you also do have your scars. I put my scars on full display, and I wear them as a badge of honor. They made me the man I am now, or the man I now am. Which is such a
Yeah.
perfect way to think. The only way really to think, right? But you feel like talking about your scars at all? I know that you've had some adversity, but having that adversity, especially talking to you now, it's obviously that you had triumph as well.
Oh yeah, we'll talk about those. Let me finish this thought, if you don't mind,
Okay,
about
yeah.
Officer Tommy Norman. So anyway,
Officer Tommy
if you
Norman,
don't
go
know
ahead.
him, he's a
I
police
don't.
officer in North Little Rock, Arkansas. Huge on social media and Instagram, Facebook. I actually originally found him on Twitter, but
Okay.
he's basically just this amazing officer who's gives so much to his community, shares so much love. And last year, about maybe 11 months ago, his daughter passed away from a fentanyl poisoning overdose, whatever, however you want to phrase that. And he was talking about how he still hasn't had a cry. He still doesn't know when that's coming, if it is coming, and how being a man and also a police officer and all the stereotypes, he wanted to be vulnerable and share that.
Right.
And I just thought, grief is, I always say this, grief is universal, but it's also individual.
Mm-hmm.
And so I just thought, kudos to him for sharing that, because he brings so much positivity to his channel and everything. And the thing, I mean, literally this man, like literally look him up because he does amazing things. I'm so underplaying
Officer Tommy, say it again. Officer Tommy
Norman. Like, I think it's T Norman 23 is his handle. But to be able to share that you're also still in pain is just also a beautiful thing, because obviously, people will shower him with comments and energy and all the things. But yeah, I just feel like, yeah, you have to show your scars. You have to, if one little thing that you say helps someone else, then that's all goodness, right? And as I was thinking about, watching some of your episodes and thinking about the different questions, or who knew where the conversation would go, it just reminded me of some of the books that I've enjoyed. And I actually have one. My mother passed away when I was 16. And this idea of grief being universal but individual, I feel like so many times in our society, we judge other people's grief. And I hate that so much, because you haven't walked a day in my shoes, right? And this book right here, The Prophet by Khalil Gibran. I love this book.
Great book.
When my mother passed away, I actually went to school the day after she died.
Wow.
And of course I got judged by that, right? But I was a good student. Mm-hmm. School was my happy and controlled and feel good space, especially because 4 years before that, my brother had passed away. So it was like, that was my place, like either a sports field / court, or just school in general was the place I felt most comfortable. And I felt like in all this pain that I'm feeling, the place that I want to go to is school for just a few hours.
Wow.
And my high school chemistry class, my sophomore year chemistry class, that was the year my mom passed away, gave me this book. And there's still an inscription in there from them.
Wow.
And it's just a nice reminder of, and I'll just read this one little line from it. She says, to Camille, may this book serve to remind you of the love that surrounds you here at name of my high school, and the high esteem that we hold you in.
That's awesome.
And just, that's just a message that says you're not alone.
That's amazing. That's wonderful. Oh, I can feel it. It. That's beautiful. And in that book too, that's I
love that book so much.
That's really
it's well loved.
That's so amazing.
Yeah.
That's wonderful. Awesome. So I commented here. Let me just pop it up on the screen, but it's in the comments. He's T Norman 23. I just looked up his thing. I'm going to definitely see what he's all about. I love that. Maybe I can get him as a guest here. That would be awesome.
He's amazing. Amazing.
And that's one of the things that's so cool too about this platform. And what I'm doing is it's given me the opportunity to reach out to people who I admire, and have conversations, and people I didn't even know that I wanted to have conversations with. I had conversations with Flat Earth Dave, a guy who's a big flat earth advocate. I just wanted to have a conversation with him and like a peaceful conversation, Grace Grella is the queen of music. She's hearing You Are Not Alone.
Oh, I love that song so much.
Yes.
Don't even get me, even just thinking about it might make me tear up a little bit.
See that? And I was talking to her earlier, the way she does her thing. And when she hears messages, a lot of times she'll be like, and she'll name a song. And immediately that song will come to your head. So the feelings that you have associated with that song come up. And it's such a powerful tool, and way that she communicates her gift. So we were talking about that earlier. So that is awesome. I love that story. I think that story actually kind of, satisfied a little bit of what I was asking for you to share, a little bit of your scars and your pain and what made you who you are. And again, I love I love that so much when you meet somebody who's had a lot of adversity, and all it did was made them stronger, a stronger force of love, right? Because love is what got them through it, and they recognize that power, and now they're a love warrior.
Yeah. And you have to, at some level, believe that, if we are still here in this moment, this version of us, then there has to be a reason, right? So you have to constantly be pursuing, well, what is that reason? What am I supposed to be bringing? What am I supposed to be giving?
Yeah, that's great. I actually, for a while, that was, again, I go through these phases where, like, for a month or two, there'll be like a specific word or concept. And one of the things I used to try to talk about when I would talk to people was like, in any situation, instead of going to the situation wondering what you're going to get out of the situation, think about what you're bringing to the situation. You know what I mean? Think about what you're bringing to the situation. My friend Jill made me a necklace. I think I have the other one on. She made me a little necklace that says "Just show up," right? All you got to do is show up, because you know who you are, and you know what you bring when you show up, right? And so
Right.
if you show up, the magic's going to happen, and if you don't show up, it won't happen. So I love all of those philosophies. Oh, Camille, you're such a delight to talk to. I love this conversation. I thank you so much for coming on the show. We got a couple minutes left to kill.
Does anybody have a question?
I feel, yeah, anybody's got a question. Oh, one question maybe. Here we go.
Well,
Act like you know. One question maybe. Best advice to get further into the money flow mindset for individuals that want to use it for the benefit of all. Oh, that's a good question. Raphael, you are the best.
that is a great question. I would say setting the intention for what you want to do with it. Because at some level, and I don't mean that from the standpoint of giving it all away, because money just makes you more of who you already are. So if you have more money flowing in to take care of whatever needs you have, so that then you can show up with a greater energy to give out, whether that's money energy or some other energy, awesome. That's what, in my mind, the universe wants for you. So setting the intention of what it is that you would do with it, and what more goodness you would put out, I think will bring it to you. That answers it. But yeah,
I think that does. I think that's a great question.
And really also just figuring out whatever gifts that you have, who would get the most from them? Meaning, who would trade you for them at the highest level? Right?
That's great. So as you're saying those things, I'm kind of wondering to myself, is that what Camille's power is? Can she consult with somebody and talk to them and help them figure out what that is?
Well, yeah. And also just you for what you're giving. I am a big, and I had to learn this, because especially when you leave the corporate world and there was a price put on the value that you brought, and you think that price is your compensation. But it's actually not your compensation. It's a multiple of your compensation. Because if you, like, let's just say I had a job and you paid me $50,000. If you only got $50,000 of value out of me, you're wasting money, right? You're getting a multiple of that $50,000 of value out of me. Therefore, when you go then put your value alone into the marketplace, away from this corporation, you need to multiply the prices, because your value is so much greater. And truly, the value that you give, what you should get back is a percentage of what you give, right? So I always work on 10% as a general rule. So if I know that the long-term value of what I'm giving you is some large number, then I believe that I deserve at least 10% of it.
At least 10%. That's amazing. Listen, are you doing this on any stages or any are you do you talk? Yeah, you do speak. It
I have
seems like
been
you should be
massaging a signature talk for quite some time. I gave it
Awesome.
once about a year ago.
You're ready.
About a year ago, and I need to give it more. And
You're
I
ready,
just
yeah.
last week I was in a conversation, like a closed mastermind kind of group conversation with a woman who's a speaking agent, and I'm not ready for her yet because I have to have a track record.
Right.
But I need to to do the talk more. And it talks a little bit about my journey and what I went through and how this whole idea of managing cash flow came out of it. So yeah,
I love
I'm
it.
actively working on that.
I want to hear it, and I wish you the best with it. I don't even already know that it's going to be successful. I don't even have to think about it. It's already there. Grace Grella,
Grace. Grace, what do you know about TED Talks?
Yeah,
this is an interesting one because I recently heard
it.
a podcast interview from one of my mentors. He interviewed someone who's a TEDx talk trainer, right? And I did not know some of the things about TED Talks. I don't know if you know this, Grace, but two things that gave me pause. One is that you have to memorize the speech. And I tend to have a frame, but I tend to kind of go different places. So that worried me. And he said, you need to give yourself at least 6 months because every week there should be a significant edit to the talk to get to your 18 minutes and whatever many seconds. I forget exactly the number. And I thought, whoa, that is a level of commitment that is intense. And so not that I would never do it, but it gives you pause to think about that, right?
and you know what? It does, because I feel like it makes me question some of the authenticity, of almost like it's a piece. It's not somebody talking from the heart. It's like a piece somebody created.
Yeah, I think it comes from the heart in the idea, but the fact that they put you in a box to deliver your idea is a whole other way.
It seems a little strict. I want to acknowledge Raphael out there. He was very happy with what you said when you said money makes you more of who you already are. He says, I can go with that.
Yes. And that is not an original. I've heard that from multiple places. One of them being Ray Higdon, who's a mentor.
And then he said he thinks you have a great story and that your energy would resonate with many. So I agree. I feel like talking to you, I'm talking to somebody who speaks up on stage and inspires other people how to be successful. Yeah.
Grace says those parameters are not true. Now I'm intrigued.
Oh, what is she talking about?
She must have done a TEDx talk.
Oh, maybe she.
And maybe it's difference between TED and TEDx. I don't know. But I heard this and I literally stopped in my tracks. I thought
that could be it, because I heard TEDx was like not super impressive because it was local and there was less prestige along with it. But listen, I feel like, and I felt this way when I was playing in a band. Even if you were playing in a band that sucked, you were playing in a band and you weren't sitting on the couch watching TV. So I gave you kudos. And I feel the same way about anybody who's out there trying to be a coach, trying to speak. I'm not saying that, I love all the coaches and they're all doing it great and all have the best intention, but I do give them kudos for doing it.
Yes. Do you read Brene Brown at all?
I do not.
And she talks about, which again is a Teddy Roosevelt quote, about being in the arena. Like basically, if you're not in the arena, I'm paraphrasing, getting your butt kicked, then you should maybe not be so critical. If you're in the arena,
absolutely. And you know what? I think that's what I think about this show in general. It has made me such a better person in understanding, communicating with other people, how important that is, and not just for me, for other people, you know what I mean, and for the world. It just makes me feel like at least I'm doing something right. And Grace says she hasn't done a TED Talk, but you will.
Oh, okay, Grace. I will.
Grace
I will accept that.
has a way of knowing things that are going to happen before they happen.
Yeah, she seems like she's communicating on another plane, so I just need to be open to that now. So yeah.
Tim says money is only a tool by which you can amplify the frequency and reach your positivity waves. I love the sentiments that are being here. I'm sure you can.
Money is it's an interesting topic, and it's also just this week I was with some people and we were talking about this concept. And, when you go all the way back to what we all live in this fiat currency world, I mean, ultimately, the money that we transact most of the time, it's largely just an agreement.
Yeah.
It's an agreement that X has a value of Y, right? So, okay, you can have other kinds of currency exchange agreements that are not fiat currency.
I think there's another episode of the live stream of consciousness based on fiat currency and what that even means and how it affects our day-to-day lives. And with that, Grace Grella, perfect comment, says Camille is priceless. Look at that. No currency. There's no currency that can describe Camille. And Raphael's out there saying yay for non-fiat.
Non-fiat, but carrying around, bales of wheat or whatever is going to be tricky, Raphael.
I love that. You know what? And I think, I'll say this. I'm not going to be afraid. I'm going to say it without thinking about my words too much. But I think my whole life, part of my relationship with money is because I think my whole life I've kind of related to much more ancient ways of existence, you know what I mean, where we barter for wheat and things like that, you know what I mean. It wasn't coins and symbols of agreements, it was actual value.
Exchange.
It was actual value. And I think that's where I come from. I haven't done enough past life digging to find the very specific origin of all of that, but I'm sure I will on my latest adventure with Akashic records and all of that stuff. I'm sure I'll be figuring a lot of this stuff out, so I'm excited for that. But anyway, again, I'm telling you how wonderful you are and how it's been talking to you. And I do think I'm going to be trying to change up the live stream or add additional. I have a show called The Moment where it's just about the moment and I can talk about anything I want. So this whole idea of non-fiat currencies and the future of human interaction on that level, maybe we can get a panel going. I can invite Raphael on.
Oh, it'd be fun.
You on, and we can have a great conversation. I would love to do that. So let me put you in the green room and say goodnight to you before, and then do my outro and stay in the green room if you don't mind, so we can just exchange some information and talk later.
Sounds good. Thanks all for being here. Thanks for the wonderful comments and questions.
Yes, thank you so much, Camille. It was awesome having you here. And I am going to take my ceremonial inhale and then my exhale. Wonderful, wonderful conversation. Thank you so much, Camille. I've got Tim out there thanking you in Portuguese. Obrigado, Camille, which I love, the international flavor of this show. Thank you, Raphael, for being here so much. I love that you were engaged and found my show interesting, because you know how I feel about what you talk about and your conversations. Next week, I have the wonderful Grace Grella coming back to the show. We had such a great time tonight on her show earlier. And next week she's going to be here and we're going to have some more fun. So join me next week if you can. I would love to see you. For now, I am out. I will see you then. Peace.